Welcome to the Wednesday stream. I hope everyone's having an awesome Wednesday morning. I hope everyone has their coffee ready. We have, quite a few. Hey, Fulad. How's it going? Hot. I guess I could say. Just a quick shout out. Thank you so much for all the new offline follows that I see here. Thank you so much, Anarcho-Gothist, Alias07, Beeline_father for all the offline follows. I believe that's everybody. We do have quite the amount of headlines to go through. Today was actually a pretty busy news cycle. Alright, so let me make sure I got everything ready. First up, let's run through this one here. Senate unanimously passes a bill making Juneteenth a federal holiday. This, I believe, originally started as a state holiday. A couple of states' holiday that recognize this. But now it's going to be at a federal level. The Senate unanimously passed a resolution on Tuesday establishing June 19th as Juneteenth National Independence Day, U.S. holiday commemorating the end of slavery in the U.S. The legislation has gained momentum since the Black Lives Matter protests sparked by the police killing of George Floyd last year and the Democrats' takeover of the White House and Congress. But Wisconsin Republican Ron Johnson blocked the bill in 2020, saying that day off for federal employees would cost taxpayers hundreds of millions of dollars. Johnson dropped his objection this week despite his concerns, paving the way for the bill's passage in the Senate. Well, I mean, like, wait. Even if he would have voted against it, it still would have passed. It would have met the filibuster requirement of 60 plus. Although I strongly support celebrating emancipation, I object to the cost and lack of debate. Wait, it's just whether or not you want to give people the day off to commemorate that. I don't know. What is their debate? Yes or no? Well, it seems strange that having taxpayers provide federal employees paid time off is now required. What? Is now required to celebrate the end of slavery. It is clear that there's no appetite in Congress to further discuss the matter. I mean, it's just a holiday. Relax. It's not like they're gonna do anything meaningful, right? The measure needs to pass the House and signed by President Biden to become law. On June 19th of 1865, Major General Gordon Granger announced in Galveston, Texas, the end of slavery in accordance with President Abraham Lincoln's 1863 Emancipation Proclamation. In 1980, Juneteenth became a Texas state holiday. In the decades since, every state but South Dakota came to officially commemorate June 19th, but only a handful of states observe it as a paid holiday. Massachusetts Democratic Senator Ed Markey, Republican John Cornyn, and Texas Democratic Representative Sheila Jackson Lee are among the members of Congress who led the effort to make Juneteenth the 12th federal holiday. All right, well, yeah, I mean, like, I'm not gonna knock it, of course. I just wish there was this unanimity. I don't know. I just wish there was this coalition to pass, like, healthcare or pass I don't know, education reform or something. Again, I'm not gonna knock this. This is very good, but it just goes to show that when, like, Congress really wants to do something, they absolutely could do it. They absolutely could do it. Hey, Magoki. Yeah, they vote for Juneteenth and patriotic education. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like, these, like... It's not nothing. It's important to, like, recognize these things at a federal level. But... I mean... Are we... Like, what is the actual, like, repercussions of passing, like, what? People get an extra day off? I mean, that's good. It's objectively good, but, like, in the reality is, like, a lot of the core problems that need to be addressed still can't get a vote in the floor. Amazon burns through workers so quickly that executives are worried they'll run out of people to employ. Yeah, it turns out, like, you can't treat your workers like garbage and have such a high turnout rate and then have, like, a surprised Pikachu face when you're like, wait, we're running out of people to hire. Howdy, howdy. Doesn't the Juneteenth bill have to pass the House? Yep, I suspect it will. I suspect it will. Amazon has been hiring hundreds of thousands of... And, like, here's the thing, like, they get to come off as, like, the good guys because on paper it looks like they keep hiring people. They're these massive job creators, right? Amazon has been hiring hundreds of thousands of workers for its role in its warehouse, which it calls fulfillment centers, but these employees have been quitting almost as fast as they can be hired, according to a huge report from the New York Times published on Tuesday. Yikes. Many of the over 350,000 workers Amazon hired from July to October stayed with the company just days or weeks. Yeah, I mean, if you like see the conditions in Amazon warehouses, you would probably quit within days or weeks too. I mean, like, the only reason is because there isn't any other options. And a lot of these turnovers are also, like, you can get fired because they artificially increase your pick rates to the point where you can't, right? To just squeeze you and then just fire you. CBS showed automated machines to avoid wrist and back injuries. I don't know. Amazon isn't exactly known for investing in their employees. Hourly employees had a turnover rate about 150% every year. Data reviewed by the Times indicated that led some Amazon executives to worry about running out of hireable employees in the US. Holy Christ. Holy yikes. Amazon went on an extended hiring spree in 2020 as it attempted to keep up with massive spike in demand during the coronavirus lockdowns. As Americans increasingly turned to Amazon for things like toiletries, groceries, the company repeatedly touted major hiring pushes. Yeah, to cover the massive turnover rates. By May of 2021, Amazon was even offering $1,000 signing bonuses to new employees, partially a symptom of hiring issues that employers are facing in a variety of industries and potentially of Amazon's remarkably high turnover rate. When former Amazon manager who oversaw human resource efforts focused on warehouse workers compared the situation with worker churn at Amazon warehouses to the use of fossil fuels. We keep using them even though we know we're slowly cooking ourselves. Yikes. Yikes. Imagine making this analogy. Thanks for the shout out, of course. Amazon representatives didn't immediately respond to a request for comment. Yeah, I wouldn't either. You can't keep treating people like this and expect to like last long in business, you know? But the automated Amazon machines can't read yet? I don't know. I mean, like, they can like, automation is coming regardless, but I don't know if they have like the ability necessarily to replace people in warehouses yet. I don't know. The reality is, if you treat your employees like, you know, like garbage, and you have massive turnover rates, eventually that's going to come back to bite you, right? And there's just no way around it. Eventually it's going to come back to bite you. And a business can't live off that. A business can't operate in this way, right? Eventually it's just going to fall apart. Hey, sourcing. They're working on it. What? Automated warehouse workers. I mean, like, we know that this is a trend where it's eventually going to end up, but... Oh, turnover issues? Gotcha. I mean, they could fix it. They could fix it by improving conditions, improving pay, like... I think that the best thing that they can do is probably fix all the conditions in the warehouse. I think, like the safety concerns, the breaks, the pick rates, like adjusting the conditions in the warehouse that would make people want to stay there. You know, on top of providing a you know, fair pay and benefits. Amazon isn't Dr. Evil, they're just a megacorp, and that means they have a short-term incentives and they get any concern about employees, but they also aware that it isn't sustainable. Yeah, I mean, and then they better get to fix it, because, I mean... That's kind of the way you fix it, right?
Privatized and deregulated power grid continues to serve. Texas's privatized and deregulated power grid continues to serve as a massive problem for the citizens of Texas because after it malfunctioned during a winter storm, now during a heat wave, unfortunately residents are dealing with the same thing: power outages and a system that is not efficient and is not working, and tends to be a problem when we're dealing with hotter and hotter temperatures every single year as a result of climate change. Now, Texas's main power grid struggled to keep up with the demand for electricity on Monday, prompting the operator to ask Texans to conserve power until Friday. So that's frustrating, right? They're dealing with a heat wave right now and they're being told, yeah, you know, like your AC, try to keep it at like 78 or higher.
Jesus.
The electricity, I know. I mean, I could probably handle that, but I can't imagine Cenk handling that. Can you imagine if it was 78 degrees in here right now?
Oh,
no, it's over. It's over.
Okay.
Like he's sweating through his jacket.
I'd be hangry for no. Even if I ate, I'd be hangry. I'd be like.
Okay, so obviously everything is bigger in Texas, even including governmental incompetence.
No, but by the way, can I imagine? Yeah, of course I can imagine it. When I was growing up in Turkey, we didn't have air conditioning. So there was a lot of sleepless nights where it was super hot and you just could not, do anything because of the heat.
Yeah.
And now, and that was back in the 1970s in Turkey.
Too much regulation,
now,
that's the
Texas
problem.
has
Yeah.
gotten to a point where they're a developing country from decades ago. And so I don't know, maybe they would have been better off staying in Mexico than with these Republican governors, because they will destroy any economy, any infrastructure, and so they can't keep an energy grid growing if their life depended on it. And by the way, your guys' life does depend on it.
Exactly, and look, part of the problem is if you privatize and deregulate and there's no oversight by the government, or very little oversight by the government, oftentimes what happens is they don't invest in ensuring that the power grid is up to par to withstand various weather conditions. It couldn't withstand a winter storm, couldn't withstand.
Yeah, so that's really the problem with this whole thing, right? There's no oversight. It's very little oversight. There's, the privatization leads to the fact that they don't consider these things valuable because it costs money, and then you have like the incidents that happen in Texas and even in California, where PG&E did just about nothing to reinforce their infrastructure. They did next to nothing to invest in their infrastructure, and they were running on what like infrastructure that was from like decades and decades old. Hey, thanks for the follow, Nanashi. Get away from your machine. Where's John Connor when you need them? Hey, listen, this is a friendly bot, okay? Hey, Brad Crochet, how's it going? This made me think more about the story where they were saying it would cost $119 million to do a central AC for this prison in Texas, which is absurd, but their power grid makes it as such. Yeah. Not addressing the problems make it more expensive in the end. There's very little oversight. It's lobbied to hell. Yeah, that's a huge problem. That is a huge problem. Like I said, the the issues in California with the PG&E, because it's a private company, they felt like they didn't really they rolled the dice and never bothered to invest to modernize their equipment, and it caused wildfires, or some of the wildfires. The same thing in Texas. No oversight, no regulations, nothing. They were not prepared for a potential like winter storm, and they're not prepared for the exacerbated heat due to climate. These are all like byproducts of climate change.
Summer heat. And so the Electricity Reliability Council of Texas said in a statement on Monday that a significant number of unexpected power plant outages combined with expected record use of electricity due to hot weather has resulted in tight grid conditions. Approximately 12,000 megawatts of generation were offline Monday, or enough to power 2.4 million homes on a hot summer day. And what really stood out to me about this...
We have a Goldilocks power grid? Yeah, basically. Why don't they just fly to Cancun? Wait, they would have to be, Cruz. They would have to be Ted Cruz.
Situation was how the authorities who work on behalf of the power grid didn't really know what's going on or what's wrong. And that's what happens with government officials who don't regulate.
Right, well, it's because it's being handled by a private company. That's the problem.
These private companies don't have to force private industry to provide any type of public statement, any type of information about their operations. In fact,
like this is of a huge public concern, right? I mean, I kind of need to know if I'm gonna have electricity or what's going on with the power grid. Wait. Like this is why like I'm not really of the idea that something like energy should be privatized like this. I mean, holy yikes. Maybe the Texas officials were planning to ship us to Illinois for each summer to avoid paying for our energy. In that case, at least they had a plan. Oh no, I doubt it. You imagine?
One example is this. This is unusual for this time, or for early in the summer season, said Woody Rickerson, ERCOT Vice President of Grid Planning and Operations.
They have their
in a
hands so
statement.
far up their ass they have no room to shrug higher.
Could or would conduct an analysis to determine why so many units are offline. So we don't know. We don't know what's going on. I mean, we're having some issues with units offline. We don't know what happened. And for anyone who watched Governor Abbott sign legislation into law indicating that they were going to now actually regulate and ensure that the power grid is up to par, none of that has actually gone into effect yet. And so they're dealing with this rickety system that's obviously failing the people of Texas, and they're paying for it. They're literally paying for this crappy, privatized, deregulated system.
Right, like, and the big problem with it is it's like, this isn't like a product that's optional, okay? This isn't a product that's optional, right? Like if you're just shopping around for like a tablet or a phone or I don't know, a computer, this isn't like a product that's optional for you. You need air conditioning or you need electricity. You need these things. This is wait. Like, this isn't necessarily optional. What? People are buying yachts with the profits they make? Yeah, like this is yikes. I mean, like, and the people still like vote for these incompetent leaders, which is beyond me.
I'm not kidding. I haven't heard of any energy malfunctions in Mexico. So if they can't get air conditioning in 100-degree weathers in Texas, they might think it's a good thing Trump didn't get to actually build that wall because of his incompetence, because they might be crossing the border in the other direction. So Texas is an absolute mess. And so why is it a mess? Because of the deregulation. They said, run wild, do whatever you want. Guys, what's regulation? It's laws. Right, so you know what one regulation is?
Hold on.
Don't rob other people. Another regulation is don't kill other people. So do we need regulations? Yes, of course we do. And for corporations, hey, you need to weatherize your pipes so that they don't freeze in the winter and they don't give out, unlike the first day of summer, right? But Texas absolutely refuses.
Yeah, so that's not true, but that's nonetheless neither here nor there.
To do that. It says make all the money you want, and then when we run into problems, don't worry, people in Texas will suffer and a lot of them will die, and then we'll pay for it. Okay, so that's crony capitalism, that's corruption, that's the swamp that Republicans have built in Texas. Now get a load of this. At the end of the Texas Tribune article, they explain the legislation also changes ERCOT's governing board to replace what lawmakers called industry insiders. Oh, that sounds pretty good. With appointees selected by committee comprising of selections by Governor Greg Abbott, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, and House Speaker Dade Phelan. Those are the corrupt guys who built the system in the first place. Ooh, they get to pick the replacements? Wow, I can't wait for that. So meet the new boss, the same as the old boss.
Right, so what you're saying is nothing is, wait, so hold on. I mean, at that point, like, it doesn't really matter, does it? It's just whoever they want, it's just the same and nothing changes. Excellent. This is a great plan. To use the idea of energy infrastructure as privatized would be scary. I mean, it is privatized here. It's not privatized in the sense that there's like a whole bunch of competing energy companies. What they do, I believe, is they literally have like at least like one monopoly in every state, or two monopolies in every state, effectively. Thanks for the follow, Top Ruby. Appreciate that. So, wait. Oh man, yeah, literal ghouls. I mean, like, wait, so you're gonna replace the failures with whoever you want? I don't know. Energy companies used to fund studies all the time. So much money thrown at niche R&D, bragging about advancing research is so much more vital to them. Yeah, to a degree.
And finally, the last sentence is, the state likely won't require companies to make weatherization upgrades until 2022 at the earliest.
Of course.
Wait, they're not required to do, they've never required to do any type of winterizing or I don't know, preparations for any type of like adverse weather. That's never been a thing to my knowledge. They had fights about this. They had literal fights about whether or not companies should be required, the energy companies should be required to prepare for adverse weather. It should be a fun summer and it's just getting started. Yeah, like this is coming after like record, yet again, record heat waves and stuff that are already happening, especially in the West. So yeah, good luck, Texas.
Of course.
So they're not gonna fix anything at all. They say, okay, we privatize utilities that you need to live.
To survive, yeah.
Right, like that's the rub, right? This isn't like something that you have a choice, right? You don't have a choice of whether or not you need electricity nowadays. Like, wait, you don't need that's necessity. Why are you allowing these companies to just do whatever they want, not upgrading their systems, and allowing the power grid to just essentially age and become decrepit and useless, and then surprise Pikachu face when a dozen people died during a winter storm.
Survive. And then we do not hold them accountable. We let them maximize profit even if it winds up killing you. And then we say, oh, we're never gonna fix it because Republican voters are too stupid to ever vote us out of office.
Now hold on.
We'll just tell them transgender people in high schools. By the way, that's what's happening.
That's all they focus.
Yeah, I understand the frustration, but I don't know if like I don't know if like the correct place just to be like, yeah, you're all just too stupid. Like, I think that the correct rhetoric would be like, hey guys, this is affecting you, this is damaging you. Like, don't let them do this to you. Like, your quote unquote leadership, your quote unquote representatives, the people that you effectively voted in, are not serving you, right? I mean, like, what is the price that you're paying for your choices? I mean, like, please reconsider the fact that like there have been like real world consequences to this. Okay, about a dozen people died. Okay, during the winter storms. These things have consequences, and I implore you to highly reconsider your choices here, because they're leading to people being affected and dying. Especially now, millions are working from home. How are we supposed to pay bills if we can't work to get money to pay bills because you won't give us power? Yeah, that's another concern. Like, you're literally taking our, you know, that whole like pick yourself up by the bootstraps and like work hard and all this other stuff. Where is, like, hello, I can't work if there's no electricity. I understand that's all I mean, but you know, if you're a parent without heat and electricity can be used as grounds to take your kids away, there you go. Not that we're all supposed to be hyper-focused on every bit of political news, but an educated populace can make better choices. I agree. That's part of the reason why one of my 4 pillars include education. This is why politics is innately important, more so than we've been led to believe. I agree. I mean, you have to be understanding and involved. So, like, I don't know. I think that, like, just broadly saying that, like, oh, you guys are all just, like, stupid isn't necessarily the right, correct choice of words. I think that it's more of like, hey, open your eyes. Like, what is, do you realize what's going on here? Do you know the ramifications of the choices being made here? And if so, Why?
Focus on
In Texas, they passed a law on how transgender athletes can't go on the wrong team, right? And then when asked, hey, are there any such cases in Texas? They're like, I don't know. So it's a literal, non-existent problem in Texas. Meanwhile, you have a massive problem in Texas. You can't use the power in Texas. And they do nothing about it. That's
true.
Republican priorities. Own the libs, hate the others, and never ever hold corporations accountable.
And look, they will make the argument that they don't agree with transgender athletes playing on the team that they identify with or competing on the team that they identify with because they want fair competition. They want to keep people safe. They're worried about, female transgender athletes being in the same locker room as, female athletes, right? But 700 Texans died during that winter storm.
Wait.
Where your privatized, deregulated power.
Hold on. How many people passed away in this winter storm? The official count is under 100. Okay, so more than I thought, but less than 700, folks. Okay, hold on. But there are reports that it's around 700. Yeah, like I don't necessarily buy that. But a lot of people died.
Power grid went out and couldn't provide heat for people. They literally froze to death. 700.
And they didn't do anything about it.
Come on.
They said, oh, don't worry, we'll appoint new board members and we're gonna be the ones who appoint them. The same guys who brought you the
Yeah, so I mean, like, I think like the obvious takeaway from this is like, it is incredibly irresponsible to allow privatization in this manner without absolutely zero oversight, effectively zero regulation. Still charging people for nothing because they don't get the service. I mean, people died as a result of this irresponsibility. Now, she died due to her dialysis not having power. Well, yeah, I mean that should have been counted because like the whole point is you need the electricity to power the machine. Learning and reading budget line for line is boring, and what does the public want to do that? So we got to make it easy, Alio. Part of the stuff that I talk about, like in terms of like democracy, for a fully functioning democracy, people need strong institutions. In other words, institutions that have proper checks and balances, and institutions that won't be exploited or broken. We need inclusive institutions, meaning people need to participate, and we need transparent institutions, meaning people need to understand what is going on, which law is coming down the pipeline, who is your local council, what new ordinances are they passing, who's your state legislation, what's your governor up to, If not, it doesn't work. I'm sure most of those 700 numbers are like that, not direct weather exposure tests, but indirect related. Gotcha. Okay, I mean, like, maybe it's possible. Maybe it's possible. I learned so much about my city just looking at budget, mainly at police budgets. Gotcha. Yeah, so like the point is, this is why it is incredibly important to be engaged. I mean, this is incredibly important to understand what your what your local, state, and federal government is up to. Okay, I mean, I don't agree with like broadly just like saying that everybody's just like stupid. Here, like everybody's stupid in Texas, but the point being is like you guys need to be aware of what's happening. I mean, they're literally leading to people's deaths, right? Their incompetence, their irresponsibility for allowing a private corporation is leading to people's deaths. It's just straight up. That's just straight up like what's happening. I mean, yeah, police budget 2.4 billion a year for police for 800 officers. I mean, like, what are they spending it on? That's the real question. Alright, here's a disturbing story. For years, the US Army downplayed the extent of firearm loss. Just kind of yikes. The US Army has hidden or downplayed the extent to which its firearms disappear, significantly understating losses and thefts even as some weapons are used in street crimes. The Army's pattern of secrecy and suppression dates back nearly a decade when the Associated Press began investigating weapons accountability within the military. Mind you, this is the same military who has like hundreds of billions of dollars. Like, wait, this seems kind of like it stands to reason. It stands to reason these things shouldn't be happening. They have such a massive budget. In Toronto, police lost 10 fully automatic MAC-10s. Yikes. The Army's pattern of secrecy and suppression dates back nearly a decade when the Associated Press began investigating weapons accountability within the military. Officials fought to release the information for years, then offered misleading answers that contradicted internal records. Military guns aren't just disappearing. Stolen guns have been used in shootings, brandished to rob and threaten people, and recovered in the hands of felons. Thieves sold assault rifles to the street gang. That's kind of a weird sentence, but I guess that's an example of what happened. Army officials cited information that suggests only a couple of hundred firearms vanished during the 2010s. Internal Army memos that the AP obtained show losses many times higher. Yikes. More money does not mean more accountability. It actually means the exact opposite. True. The former Army insider. Efforts to suppress the information date back to 2012 when the AP filed a Freedom of Information Act seeking to request records from a registry where all 4 armed services are supposed to report firearm loss or theft. The former Army insider who oversaw this registry described how he pulled an accounting of the Army's lost or stolen weapons, but learned later that his superiors blocked its release. As the AP continued to press for information, including through legal challenges, the Army produced a list of missing weapons that was so clearly incomplete, officials later disavowed it. Then they produced a second set of records that also did not give a full account. Dude. Secrecy surrounding a sensitive topic extends beyond the Army. The Air Force wouldn't provide data on missing weapons, saying the answers would have to await a federal records request AP filed 1.5 years ago. The broader Department of Defense has also not released reports of weapon losses that it received from the armed services. It would only provide approximate totals for 2 years of AP's 2010 through 2019 study period. Yikes. So, this kind of goes back to what I was talking about. You kind of need to have transparency in order for democracy to work, right? You need to know these things, and you need to be upfront, okay? Because this is kind of important. This is like public. This is a public like concern. Hey, Surfer Go Gritty, buenos dias. This is of public concern, right? Your job isn't to make yourself look as good as possible. Your job is as civil servants, as the government, is to serve the people. And I'm sorry, but if there's like information that is relevant to the public, it needs to be disclosed, right? The Pentagon stopped regularly sharing information about missing weapons with Congress years ago. Apparently in the 1990s, Defense Department officials say they would still notify lawmakers if a theft or loss meets the definition of being significant. Like, what does that mean? Oh, whoops. Sorry, Serpico. There we are. Go follow twitch.tv/surfergirlgritty. Do it. Say they would notify lawmakers if theft or loss meets the definition of being significant, but no such notification has been made since 2017. What does significant mean? On Tuesday, when AP first published its investigation, Senator Richard Blumenthal demanded during a Senate Armed Service Committee hearing that the Pentagon resurrect regular reporting. In a written statement to AP, the Pentagon said it looks forward to continuing to work with Congress to ensure appropriate oversight. Yeah, okie dokie. Blumenthal also challenged Army Secretary Christine Wormuth on her branch's release of information. I'd be happy to look into how we handled this issue. Wormuth replied she described herself as open to new reporting requirements and said the number of military firearms obtained by civilians is likely small. Okay, but how do you know that? Combo of life expenses and my local city council tells public to be at City Hall, but Facebook has more complaints and many in the apathetic party. Yeah, that's kind of a problem, isn't it? You need people to be participative, right? That's kind of the three pillars or the three sections of democracy. You need people to be participating, inclusive. You need people to be participating. You are very light for one of us. Who is one of us? Seems that's a very strange comment. What is very light? What does very light mean? And what does one of us mean? Ebonized brothers. What is an ebonized brother? And what does that mean and why is that relevant? Oh, I gotcha. I gotcha. What a clown. Poor record keeping in the military's vast inventory system means lost or stolen guns can be listed on property records as safe. Security breakdowns were evident all the way down to individual units which have destroyed records, falsified inventory checks, and ignored procedure. Brigadier General Dwayne Miller, the number 2 law enforcement official in the Army, said that when a weapon does vanish, the case is thoroughly investigated. He pointed out that weapons cases are a small fraction of more than 10,000 felony cases the Army investigators opened each year. I absolutely believe that the procedure we had in place absolutely mitigated any weapons from getting lost or stolen. Miller said of his own experience as a commander, but it does happen. But does it happen? It sure does. The Associated Press began investigating the loss and the theft of military firearms, asking a simple question in 2011. How many guns are unaccounted for across the Army, Marine Corps, Navy, and Air Force? AP was told the answer could be found in the Department of Defense, Small Arms, and Light Weapon Registry. That centralized database, which the Army oversees, tracks the life cycle of rifles, pistols, shotguns, machine guns, and more from supply depots to unit armories through deployments until the weapon is destroyed or sold. Ooh, yeah, so TLDR, it seems like there's a lot of conflicting information here in regards to how many weapons are missing, and how many weapons are out there. Okay. Sorry, we had a very special person interrupt us in DMs. Royal was accustomed to inquiries. Military and civilian law enforcement agencies would call him thousands of times each year, often because they were looking for a military weapon or had recovered one. Wait, did I miss something? Cheney. Hey, memo for the record. How's it going? Anyways, so the TLDR about this is, it is important to have transparency in the government, okay? When the press asks for important information like this to do a report, it should be easy to obtain, right? It should be easy to obtain. And the fact that, like, we can't even explain some of these discrepancies is disturbing. The fact that it takes decades, to obtain this information is a problem, right? The government is there. Well, supposedly, sorry, the press is there to hold the government accountable, but if you can't get the information, or if it's such a hassle that you have to wait decades or consistently fight for it in court, that's a massive problem. One of the other chuds have been harassing the community I'm in. Apparently they pledged fealty to Jimmy Dore. Lol. Yeah, I don't know, like, that other person is just off the rocker. But I guess after yesterday, I'm gonna have to be extra attentive in MR chat, in MR chat and the Nomiki show chat, because I suspect that today we're gonna see a lot of oh boy, a lot of wonderful folks here. Did anybody see the Biden news conference? No, but I'm gonna try to get through this so we can watch at least one part of it. Hold on. Actually, you make a good point, Alio. Let me bring that up. Jimmy Dore kind of stinks. That's a light way of putting it. Was it the same guy named Sumdum? No. I didn't even know. He comes here sometimes, but I haven't seen him post cringe here. I've seen the username Sumdum before, but I haven't seen them post any type of cringe here. At least in this channel. But I will be paying attention to Majority Report chat today because oh boy, I've seen some cringe from Sumdum somewhere. Okay, well, keep an eye out, folks. Mods, keep an eye out. I'll be keeping an eye out too. Oh, I did? Okay, then there must be a reason for that. There must have been a reason for that. I completely forgot. KTS Shine. Okay, so yeah, just eyes out, eyes open, and I'll be extra attentive in Majority Report chat. I feel like today we might deal with some trolls. Oh man, damn. Second thought. He's going into several chats and discords defending Jimmy sexually harassing Anna. Yeah, I mean, like, the comments were like unbelievably cringe. Like, like the gall to do this. I mean, Jesus Christ, Jimmy Dore, fucking gross. Like, that was completely unnecessary, crude, and disgusting. He's going to several chats defending. Yeah, well, I mean, like, why do people feel like In front of her students too. Yeah, Jesus Christ. Why do people feel the need to stan a content creator so hard? To the point that they'll go into other communities. I don't get it. Like, look, if I do some really dumb, cringe things, like, it's okay to call me out on it, right? It's okay to like call somebody out on it, right? Just saying, right? These people are humans. They're not gods. Whether you have a 2-person audience or a 2,000 person audience, if you do cringe, you should be called out for it. Just saying. And nobody's above correct criticism. Like, if you're just there to like create drama, that's another thing. But if you're like providing some real criticism, be like, hey, look, this is inappropriate, this is just abhorrent, this is irresponsible, so on and so forth, that's fine, you know? I have creators that I love, but when they do something wrong, I never defend it. Yeah, like, that's, I never understood that. When people feel like if their creator does something bad, enabling them makes it go away. Yeah. Like, I don't get it. Like, you can respect and you can listen to podcast, to streamers, to news anchors, to, I don't know, journalists that you read online. You can admire these people and you can like respect them, but like, they're human beings, right? And they will make mistakes, and on occasion, I know this might be wild, but some human beings aren't that good. Just saying. I love how like my YouTube requests or suggestions are live, chill step, Richard Wolf, wealth, cats, stocks, birds, farms, debates. So you're not a god among men? Okay, I'll take you off the pedestal. Thank you, Memo. I appreciate that. Oh, look, that's me. I mean, not me. White House. But I won't stop standing. That's perfectly fine. As long
if you were to be stranded on a desert island and you had to bring one.
Jesus. That scared me for a second. Yeah, it's okay to stand people. It's not okay to like excuse bad behavior. And like at the end of the day, hey, BBCL, how's it going? Back at work? Nice. That means 9 a.m. is a thing again. Hey. Yeah, that doesn't mean there aren't humans, and unfortunately some human beings aren't very good human beings. Looking at you, Jimmy Dore. I think this one's it. Let's see if we can get through some of it.
Well, good afternoon, and let me start by thanking Prime Minister Johnson for incredible hospitality and welcome that he provided for all of us at the G7. I'd like to thank Gail Lempert, who is our charge at the embassy, filling in for the ambassador and ambassador. We'll have one soon, but she did a great job supporting the entire team. And
he's so tired.
Gail is vital to keeping this UK-US partnership going and moving smoothly as it is now. We've just wrapped up what has been an extraordinary, collaborative, and productive meeting of the G7. Everyone at the table understood and understands both the seriousness and the challenges that we are up against and the responsibility of our proud democracies to step up and deliver for the rest of the world. That's what the G7 is all about, and rallying the world's democracies to meet the challenges that the world faces and deliver for our people. And
no, I think they're referring to Joe. What did Jimmy do now? He posted cringe. Alright, let's leave it at that. He posted cringe.
We can't achieve one without the other. That is, we have to deal with the pandemic. And
he was incredibly rude, crude, and disrespectful to Anna Kasparian.
In order to be able to deal with economic recovery, which as we're doing in the States, but we committed that we're going to do more for the rest of the world as well. The fact is that the U.S. Contribution is the foundation the foundation to work out how we're going to deal with the 100 nations that are poor and having trouble finding vaccines and having trouble dealing with reviving their economies if they were in the first place in good shape. And I committed that we would provide a half a billion beyond the 80 million we've already got, half a billion doses of Pfizer vaccine, which we contracted to pay for, in addition to money we put into the COVID project, which is that COVID is, I know you all know, but a lot of people may not know what COVID is. That is a system whereby they're going to provide funding for states to be able to get access to vaccines on their own as well. But the bottom line is what that generated was a commitment by the rest of our colleagues at the G7 that they would provide another $500 million. So we're going to have 1 billion doses of vaccine. And in our case, that includes sharing more than not just 1 billion doses overall, but we're going to provide for 200 million of those doses by the end of the year, another 300 million by the first half of next year. And so it was greeted with some enthusiasm, and we've agreed to work together so that the world is better prepared to detect and deal with future pandemics, because there will be future pandemics. We have I'm sure you've seen it, if you haven't, you'll get it, a joint statement
of the
G7. You've seen it, I'm sure. And we are committed to follow on to do some significant work, including not only how we deal with the distribution and help in getting shots in arms for the rest of the world, but how we're going to deal with putting together a mechanism to anticipate and deal with and be aware of the next pandemic when it comes along. And there will be others.
Yeah, I think
we also
this is
agreed
important.
to take important steps. We're going to support global economic recovery by laying the foundation for an equitable global
No, this guy's
critically, the G7 leaders endorsed a global minimum tax of 15%. So many corporations have been engaged in what are essentially tax havens, deciding that they would pay considerably less in other environments around the world. But this is going to make sure there's a minimum tax, and I'm going to move on this at home as well. Minimum tax for corporations to pay for the profits they make anywhere in the world.
Wait, hold on. This is wait. If this is true, hold on. If this is true, I think that this might be a step in the right direction to have like a universality no matter where you go, in terms of like you can't escape the taxes. Okay, that is a good step. That is, well, now here's the thing. Whether or not it happens is another thing. I know, KTS, it's wild. So whether or not it happens, it's another thing, but the reality is that's a good idea.
And this agreement's going to help arrest the race to the bottom that's been going on among nations.
Have good ideas, but they achieve none of them true.
Like protecting our workers and investing in infrastructure. We also made a momentous commitment at the G7 to help meet more than $40 trillion need that exists for infrastructure in the developing world. I put forward an idea that was called, we named the Build Back Better World Partnership, which is, we're calling it the B3W. The point is that what's happening is that China has its Belt and Road Initiative, and we think that there's a much more equitable way to provide for the needs of countries around the world. And so it's a values-driven, high-standard, transparent financing mechanism we're going to provide.
What are you going to do?
In 4 key areas: climate, health, digital technology, and gender equity. And we believe that will not only be good for the countries, but be good for the entire world and represent values that our democracies represent, and not autocratic lack of values. By harassing the full potential of those who are harassing, we're going to have to try to change things. That's the whole idea. But here's the deal. We're going to make sure that we're able to pull together the ability to use the development financing institutions and other development tools to expect a bold new infrastructure investment in low and middle income countries over the coming years, much of it coming from the private sector, which will generate, the capital put in will generate significantly more capital from the private sector. We also made historic commitment to permanently eliminate the use of our public finance to support unabated coal projects around the world, and to end them by this year. The G7 agreed to that, and those who are not members but visiting members who are participating in the G7 who have coal-fired facilities have also agreed that they would work in that direction as well. So,
I mean, like, I'm sorry, but I'm not buying the idea that I'm not buying the idea that just allowing like the private sector to take over, especially when it comes to climate change, is the right way to go. I mean, like, we don't, I don't, maybe he does understand, but we don't necessarily have the time frame available to us to wait till the private sector catches up. So we'll make sure the wealth gaps in non-developed countries. I don't know what that means.
Transitioning the world to cleaner energy sources is urgent. It's essential.
That part is true. Transitioning the world to clean energy, renewable sources as quickly as possible is essential if we're going to beat climate change, as he's about to say. That is true.
Climate, and there is one of the things some of my colleagues said to me when I was there was, well, the United States' leadership recognizes there is global warming. And I know that sounds silly, but we had a president in the last who basically said it's not a problem, global warming.
So here's the thing, like with a lot of people who like come in and like think that, oh well, there's no point in us doing anything about climate change. There's no point in anything because of insert country here, right? Because of China, or because of India, or because of this, or because of that. Well, he's just kind of proving the point that we need to be the ones who take initiative, not only just because of our supposed weight around the world, but because, well, it's kind of our responsibility too. The entire Build Back Better plan is just a bailout to the private sector. Yeah, it seems like it. We can't even handle the wealth gap in the U.S. True.
It is the existential problem facing humanity.
That is true.
Being treated that way. So we're going to provide up to $2 billion to support developing countries as they transition away from unabated coal-fired power. In addition, we also agreed to tackle corruption, which is a threat to societies everywhere. I pointed out in a conversation I had with with
what does that mean?
One of the leaders of well, actually with China, and it was a request for me not to try to. When I was asked what I was going to be doing. After being elected, I said we're going to reestablish the strength of American relationships so we can be counted on again, alliances, and suggested that, well, maybe you shouldn't get the Quad, meaning India, Japan, Australia, and the United States working together, and maybe you shouldn't be pushing on strengthening the European Union to deal with the West, not just to have, and so on. And I said, for an American president to, every president to be sustained or prime minister has to represent the values of their country. And I pointed out, and I mean it sincerely, we're unique. As a country, we're unique in the sense that we're not based on ethnicity or geography or religion. We're one nation that said we organized on an idea. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men and women are created equal. Sounds corny, but it's real. And any president
the thing.
The raison d'etat for the nation is cannot be sustained at the support of that country. And so what we were able to do is we know that corruption undermines the trust in government, siphons off public resources, makes economies much less competitive, and constitutes a threat to our security.
Cool. So what do you plan to do with all the corruption here? Which is aided and abetted by large corporations who have undue influence on the politics.
So we're going to work together to address issues like the abuse of shell companies and money laundering through real estate transactions.
Okay.
We've agreed that we're going to work together to address cyber threats from state and non-state actors like criminal ransomware networks and hold countries accountable that harbor criminal ransomware actors don't hold them accountable.
It's not.
And over the past few weeks,
so close.
The nations of the G7 have affirmed that democratic values that underpin everything we hope to achieve in our shared future, that we're committed to put them to work. 1, delivering vaccines and ending the pandemic. 2, driving substantial inclusive economic recovery around the world. 3, fueling infrastructure development in places that most badly need it. 4, in fighting climate change. The only way we're going to meet the global threats is by working together and with our partners and our allies. And I conveyed to each of my G7 counterparts that the United States is going to do our part. America is back at the table. America is back at the table. The lack of participation in the past and full engagement was noticed significantly, not only by the leaders of those countries, but by the people in the G7 countries. And America's back in the business of leading the world alongside nations who share our most deeply held values. And so the bottom line is I was very pleased with the outcome of the entire conference. I noticed there was a lot of coverage of my individual comments made by my colleagues about how we were all getting along together. But the truth of the matter is we did. I felt it wasn't about me, it was about America. I felt a genuine sense of enthusiasm that America was back at the table and fully engaged. And now I'm going to be heading off to Brussels, to NATO, and
okay, so now can Congress and republics put away the culture war and work on society or not? Probably not. That depends on, honestly, depends on, it depends on whether or not the Democratic Party wants to actually move and put forth real policies in front and provide some real palpable results, as they're the ones who hold the floor right now. Right? I mean, it's just like that.
The same people are going to be at that table and in NATO, and to make the case we are back as well. We do not view NATO as a sort of a protection racket. We believe that NATO is vital to our ability to maintain American security for the next...
I mean, again, some of these points are good, but first of all, how are you going to make this happen? And second of all, it is true that you are going to need an international coalition to fight climate change. I'm just wary of this, like, international, man, I don't mean to be crude, but like this international like circle jerk of platitudes. I'm not sure what exactly that will mean in terms of like action, in terms of climate change.
The remainder of the century. And there's a real enthusiasm. I made it clear, and I pointed out, and I thanked them. Article 5 is an attack on one, is attack on all. Well, what Americans sometimes don't forget, remember what happened in 9/11? We were attacked. Immediately, NATO supported us. NATO supported us. NATO went till we got bin Laden. NATO was part of the process. And I want them to know, unlike whether they doubted, that we believe NATO and Section 5 is a sacred obligation.
What year
Bottom
is
line
this?
I think we made some progress in reestablishing American credibility among our closest friends and our values. Now, why don't I take some of your questions? And I'm told, Jonathan, I'm supposed to recognize you first.
I appreciate that, sir. Thank you very much. President Vladimir Putin, thank you. Vladimir Putin, who you'll be seeing in a few days in Geneva, said just a couple of days ago that he believed that U.S.-Russia relations were at a low point. In what concrete ways could your summit change that? And then secondly, on the same topic, you have said previously and in the run-up to the summit that you would be unafraid to call out Russia's
and retaliated against the wrong nation for it. True.
Interference. But you're not having a joint press conference with Putin. Why not take the chance to stand side by side with him and say those things to him with the world watching?
Well, let me make it clear. I think he's right. It's a low point.
Did he actually mention? Yeah, that's why I was like, wait, what year is this?
Consistent with international norms, which in many cases he has not. As I told him when I was running, when I got elected, before I was sworn in, that I was going to find out whether or not he in fact did engage in trying to interfere in our election, that I was going to take a look at whether he was involved in the cybersecurity breach that occurred, et cetera. And if I did, I was going to respond. I did. I checked it out, so I had access to all the intelligence. He was engaged in those activities. I did respond and made it clear that I'd respond again. With regard to, I always found, and I don't mean to suggest that the press should not know, but this is not a contest about who can do better in front of a press conference or try to embarrass each other. It's about making myself very clear what the conditions are to get a better
Hey, Eric, how's it going?
Russia. We're not looking for conflict. We are looking to resolve those actions which we think are inconsistent with international norms, number one. Number two, where we can work together, we may be able to do that in terms of some strategic doctrine that may be able to be worked together.
This guy benefits a lot from speed up, Drew.
There may be the ability to work together on climate.
Howdy,
so
howdy.
the bottom line is that I think the best way to deal with this is for he and I to meet, he and I to have our discussion. I know you don't doubt that I'll be very straightforward with him.
Yeah, and stop the saber
and I will
rattling.
make clear my view of how that meeting turned out, and he'll make clear how from his perspective, how it turned out. But I don't want to get into being diverted by did they shake hands, how far did they talk, who talked the most, and the rest. Now, he can say what he said the meeting was about, and I will say what I think the meeting was about. That's how I'm going to handle it. I'm sorry I'm going to get in trouble with staff. I don't do this the right way. Jennifer Jacob, Bloomberg.
On China, China seems to be doing exactly what it wants to do with regard to Hong Kong, with regard to Xinjiang, with the South China Sea, and many other issues, despite pressure from you and from allies.
No, I think he was
the
just
language
like,
in the G7 communique does have some mentions of China, which is different from past years. But I know it's not as tough as you and your team wanted it to be.
How we can justify our balloon military budget? Look, we can't even keep track of the amount of guns being, like, lost.
For trying to be respectful, but why isn't that communique a little bit tougher? Are you disappointed in that? And what can you do to change some of these actions by China?
Well, first of all, I think it, as you know, last time the G7 met,
Shake hands, Lamau.
But this time there is mention of China. The G7 explicitly agreed to call out human rights abuses in Xinjiang and in Hong Kong, explicitly. Two, to coordinate a common strategy to deal with China non-market policies that undermine competition. They've agreed, and that's underway now, how to do that. Three, to take serious actions against forced labor in solar, agriculture, and the garment industries, because that's where it's happening, and they've agreed we will do that. To launch what I said earlier, I really feel very strongly. I propose that we have a democratic alternative to the Belt and Road Initiative to build back better, and they've agreed to that, and that's underway as the details of that.
It was a bureaucratic waste? Yeah, sure. Absolutely,
thirdly,
I bet.
That we are going to insist on
125 billion just
to be for a climate-friendly, transparent alternative to the Belt and Road Initiative, and but in the meantime, we're going to move forward. Look,
Biden has a lifelong stutter condition.
I think it's always,
yeah, no. It could just be that.
I know this is going to sound somewhat prosaic.
It was just like a stutter, or like a sometimes I do that, like I slur like words together, so it might sound like that memo.
I think we're in a contest, not with China per se, but a contest with autocratic governments around the world, as whether or not democracies can compete with them in the rapidly changing 21st century. And I think how we act and
so Build Back Better's West Belt and Road Initiative confirmed. Yeah, basically is what he's implying.
Did they step up? Are democracies as relevant and as powerful as they have been? And I walked away from the meeting with all my colleagues believing that they are convinced that that is correct now too. I shouldn't say now, not just because of me, but they believe that to be the case. And so I think you're going to see just straightforward dealing with China. And again, we're not looking, as I've told Xi Jinping myself, I'm not looking for conflict. Where we cooperate, we'll cooperate. Where we disagree, I'm going to state it frankly, and we are going to respond to actions that are inconsistent. For example, we talked about trade. It's one thing to talk about whether or not our agriculture policy makes sense. It's another thing to say, by the way, you're demanding that if I do business in your country, I've got to give you all my trade secrets and have the Chinese partner have 51% of that? No, not us.
So are you saying, Mr. President, are you satisfied with what came out in the
Yes.
communique, or do you wish it were tougher? Do you wish there was more action on China?
I think there's plenty of action
Yes.
on China, and
Also,
it's
yes.
always something that you.
What?
I'm sure my colleagues think there's things they think they could improve that they want it, but I'm satisfied. Steve Holland, Reuters.
The communique cited a variety of fronts on China, everything from human rights, the origin of the COVID virus, Taiwan. What do you think China needs to do to ease tensions?
I think China has to start to act more responsibly in terms of international norms on human rights and transparency. Transparency matters across the board. And I think the idea that, for example, one of the things I raised and others raised, I wasn't the only one who raised this at the G7, is that we don't know, we haven't had access to the laboratories to determine whether or not, I have not reached a conclusion because our intelligence community is not certain yet, whether or not this was a consequence of from the marketplace of a bat and interfacing with animals in the environment.
Interfacing.
This COVID-19, or whether it was an experiment gone awry in a laboratory. It's important to know the answer to that because we have to have access. We have to build a system whereby we can know when we see another lack of transparency may produce another pandemic. We have to have access. The world has to have access. So we're trying to figure out at the G7 whether we could put together an international basis upon which we could have a bottom line with what the transparency accounted for.
I always interface with my fellow sapiens. What an informative title. I mean, it's true.
What did you argue behind the scenes to try to bring people to the point where they got?
Although algorithmically wise, it's got a 0 SEO score.
I just laid out what I thought was the need for us to be consistent to protect our economies and to see to it that other struggling economies who needed help got the help and were not held captive by other nations.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Secrecy for the sake of secrecy is only meant to evade criticism. That's true. What plugin is that? TubeBuddy.
I'm not trying to be a wise guy, but Wall Street Journal, Andrew.
As you said, the G7 countries committed to send 1 billion coronavirus doses overseas.
Are we interfacing now? Yes.
Says 11 billion doses are needed.
Yes.
How are you going to bridge that gap? Will the U.S. commit to send additional doses overseas? And given the gap, is it actually realistic to end the pandemic by 2022?
It is. It may take slightly longer worldwide, but the United States is going to continue. I think there's a possibility over 2022 going to 2023 that we would be able to be in a position to provide another billion, us. But that's not done yet. I've been very careful as I've dealt with this pandemic to tell you what I know and say what I thought could be done. And when I've announced it, I've gone and done it. What I don't want to do is be getting too far ahead and suggesting that we can do things and I can do things, the United States can do things that I don't have done yet.
I like Biden is better than Trump. Yeah,
yeah. All our colleagues at the G7,
sure.
This wasn't the end. We were going to stay at it until we were able to provide for it.
I will say that he's definitely better than Trump. Like, I don't know. I know that isn't exactly the biggest bar to bridge, but he's definitely
health, our own security. You can't build a wall high enough to keep out new strains. You can't do that. And so I think this is going to be a constant project.
Marginally, however,
there may be other pandemics.
It may be he is still slightly better.
Whereby we can detect before it gets out of control a pandemic that may be on the horizon, a virus, is important. So we are not going to, as long as there's nations in need of being able to be vaccinated.
I call it external communication transfer of language interface.
Which I've made clear.
In outer facing.
My colleagues understood it.
Hanging out.
Knew it from trying it themselves. This is a gigantic logistical effort. It's one thing to send nation X number, Y number of vaccines. Another thing to have the people that can actually get it in somebody's arm.
Yes.
And so we are also providing the ability for other countries to manufacture their vaccines. We've all agreed on that.
Yeah, that's also true. I will say that that's also true. I mean, it should be the right thing to do where we can throw out all those excess doses of vaccines, especially with the new Novavax that's possibly getting approval. We could have more excess doses that we could provide. I mean that should be the right thing to do. Morning. We need to provide the reagent and downstream tech for free to people, not the vaccine itself. Yeah, so that's also another good point.
Material capacity thus far to do the manufacturing, but there's a lot going on.
I mean, he points that out.
Only to quote give.
Yeah, he kind of gives them the point, like saying, you know, it's one thing to just give them doses. It's another thing to have people being able to administer it, and the whole like logistics is a problem. So maybe it's probably easier to just give them the tools to do it.
Peter Alexander, NBC News.
Thank you very much. About Vladimir Putin in your meeting this week, as you're well aware, the U.S. has been slapping sanctions on Russia for years for its malign activities, and Russia has not stopped. So what specifically will you do differently to change Vladimir Putin's behavior?
Well, first of all, there's no guarantee you can change a person's behavior in favor of his country. Autocrats have enormous power. They don't have to answer to a public. And the fact is that it may very well be, if I respond in kind, which I will, that it doesn't dissuade him. He wants to keep going. But I think that we're going to be moving in a direction where Russia has its own dilemmas, let's say, dealing with its economy, dealing with COVID, and dealing with not only the United States but Europe at large and the Middle East. And so there's a lot going on where we could work together with Russia. For example, in Libya, we should be opening up the passes to be able to go through and provide food assistance and vital assistance to a population that's in real trouble. I think I'm going to try very hard to. It is. And by the way, there's places where I shouldn't be starting off and negotiating in public here. But
oh my God. Dude, I don't know why he always does this. Is this like a gimmick? No, no offense, but like, is this like a gimmick where like every time he's about to say something, he's like, well, I know I shouldn't say this. I might get in trouble for this. And then does it? Is that like a gimmick?
Russia has engaged in activities which we believe are contrary to international norms, but they have also bitten off some real problems they're going to have trouble chewing on. And for example, the rebuilding of Syria, of Libya, they're there. And as long as they're there without the ability to bring about some order in the region, you can't do that very well without providing for the basic economic needs of people. So I'm hopeful that we can find an accommodation where we can save the lives of people for example, in Libya, consistent with the interest of maybe for different reasons, but reach for the same reason, the same result.
I want to ask you about a comment that Vladimir Putin said today, but why do you think he hasn't changed his behavior in spite of everything the U.S. has done to this point?
He's Vladimir Putin.
I'm impressed he was able to handle this for 30 minutes. True.
Sit down with him, and I'll be happy to talk after that.
Here's the thing.
To conclude, today he said that Russia would be ready to hand over cyber criminals to the United States if the U.S. would do the same to Russia, and an agreement came out of this meeting coming up. So are you open to that kind of a trade with Vladimir Putin?
Yes, I'm open to, if there's crimes committed against Russia.
Is the argument about patents regarding short-term management versus long-term manufacturing could become a yearly issue?
Holding them accountable.
I would say that it could become a problem. Maybe. You just asked about Snowden. Maybe. Is that a reference to Snowden?
I was told as I was flying here that he said that. I think that's potentially a good sign of progress. Thank you all very, very much.
You would trade Snowden for somebody? Cyber? Yeah, I don't know. Listen, I'm going to be a little bit critical of the press here. He did mention a lot about important issues. I think the questions, one of the questions that should have been asked, or some of the questions that should have been asked, is, okay, you spoke about having an international, thing about climate change. How exactly do you plan to do that? What exactly is the roadmap to do this? Your so-called Build Back Better, whatever. And you did mention that we have a problem with companies, hiding out in tax havens, and a potential international cooperation to kind of stop that. How are you going to make that happen? Who's going to participate? Because it kind of matters which countries are going to participate, right? And it kind of requires all of them to do so, right? That guy was singled out for questions. At this time when he asked a question, for sure was set up to be asked. In the second press conference, President Biden said he needs more time. Yeah.
I'm going to get in trouble with my staff. Yeah, go ahead. I pretend that you didn't answer you.
You have often said repeatedly that America is back.
Yes.
At the same time, you've kept in place some Trump-era steel and aluminum sanctions. And I wanted to ask you, when you're having these conversations with European allies who are very concerned about these sanctions, how do you justify that? And what are your plans?
120 days. Give me a break.
Give me a break. Give me a break, Jack. All right. Is Fancy Bear in the U.S.? I don't know. I think this is the other part. Is this the other part?
Good evening. Before I turn to today's meetings, I want to say a short word about our ongoing fight against COVID-19 at home. We made enormous progress in the United States. Much of the country is returning to normal, and our economic growth is leading the world, and the number of cases and deaths are dropping dramatically. But there's still too many lives being lost.
Okay.
We're still averaging the last 7 days loss of 370 deaths per day.
Oh, is this just about COVID?
Significantly lower than at the peak of this. The answer is, I believe he has in the past essentially acknowledged that he was, there are certain things that he would do or did do. But look, when I was asked that question on air, I answered honestly. But it's not much of a, I don't think he has in the past relative to cyber. We agreed that among the most important shared security agenda, and that we agreed to fully resource that agenda. The last time NATO put together a strategic plan was back in 2010, when Russia was considered a partner and China wasn't even mentioned. We talked about the long-term systemic challenges that China's activities pose to our collective security today. We agreed to do more to enhance the resilience of our critical infrastructures around the world, including trusted telecommunications providers, supply chains, and energy networks. We agreed to enhance our cooperation with our democratic partners in Indo-Pacific to meet challenges that exist there. We also endorsed a new cyber defense policy. NATO's first and the alliance are under increasing pressure, both internally and externally. I knew the kind of help I'd get from the Defense Department, from police departments, from the hospitals, from retired docs. I just knew.
You just knew.
And look how rapidly we move. Now we have.
Okay, so I think this is mostly about COVID. I think. Okay, so I think it's kind of like a repeat. I think because
head of state is going to stand up in front of 29 other heads of state and say, "Boy, I'm glad you're doing this." In effect, so there's a consensus, and they thanked me for being willing to talk with them about the meeting and what I intended to do. So I haven't found any reluctance. There may be someone, but not in open today or in the meetings I privately had as well. And
No, he's not in
death
custody.
Would be another indication that Russia has little or no intention of abiding by basic fundamental human rights. It would be a tragedy. It would do nothing but hurt his relationships with the rest of the world, in my view, and with me. Jeff Zelny, CNN.
Sir, good evening. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, listen, in terms of like the at least not according to his book. Yeah, I think that like this whole Snowden thing is, I think like it's just, it all comes down to like the government being very big mad that they were uncovered, and they were so big mad that they're willing to do almost anything just to get this guy back here and, you know, make him suffer consequences for being a whistleblower. You know? Like, just let it go. Take your L. Okay? Take your L. You did the things you did the things he claimed you did, and you're just big mad you got called out on it and revealed. That there's yeah, exactly, Pirate Ninja. That there's actively a large surveillance on US citizens. I mean, we've covered some of it. There's like literal spy planes that cover protests with civilian planes with like military technology. All states do, that's true. But the point is, he exposed that the gravity of that. That is what Snowden revealed to make America big mad. Yeah, like, I mean, just take your L, bro. Just, the government should just take its L, accept it, and hey, Gaffadil, how's it going? Accept it and move on. What problems get solved if you convict Snowden anyways? Yeah, like, it's, first of all, it's still happening, and second of all, like, dude, just take your L. Leave him alone. Leave him alone. Take your L. Admit it. Be more transparent with your citizens, because that's part of an important aspect of democracy, is to be as transparent as possible with your citizens, and just move on. Take your L. Jesus Christ.
In a weekend interview, Vladimir Putin laughed at the suggestion that you had called him a killer. Is that still your belief, sir, that he is a killer? And I'll continue the trend if you don't mind. That's my question.
Oh my god, alright. Why are they so mad? The public didn't even care. They just shrugged and made memes out of it. I mean, true. True. But it did still expose them. That's right, kinetic pause. Alright, so I think that we can kind of... This is kind of like a rerun of the first press conference. I think that the TLDR of this is like, okay, it is important to recognize that there is a huge problem with multinational corporations being allowed to escape taxes and being allowed to live on tax havens, right? I think it's incredibly important to recognize and to say that out loud, okay? That doesn't mean anything will get done about it, but I see it being recognized as a problem, and it is going to require an international cooperation to kind of stop that from happening. Whether or not it happens, whether or not, in my opinion, I think that a lot of this was an international, and again, excuse my crude language, but an international circle jerk with a lot of platitudes. But it is true that it's important to recognize that and do something about it. What I would have liked to hear is what exactly the press, what I would have liked to hear from the press is like, what exactly is the plan here? Like, how are you going to, who is going to be involved? How are you going to enforce these things? And the whole climate change thing. It's like, again, one of the aspects of dealing with climate change is, yes, building an international coalition, right? Sending resources to the countries that can't do green and renewable energy. It's just going to have to be a part of it, with the United States leading the way. I remember Obama playing chess over capturing Snowden. He knew many on the left and right would be upset if they captured him, and many on the far right would be upset if he pardoned him. We jokingly responded to a reporter, "We're not going to waste resources after some hacker, knowing damn well it could be fairly easy." Yeah, lip service means people care about it and are paying attention. It's not the solution we want, but it's a start. Yeah, like, the reality is, Irked, like, I need to see, I would like to see as we, you know, quote unquote, round the corner of this pandemic, which hopefully we will by the end of this year, to hit the ground running and actually do stuff, because, like, the time is running short, and, you know, there's only so much we can do. There's only so much we can do within the time that we have, especially when it comes to climate change. So speaking of, this is quick because we talked about this already. It is good that the Biden administration put a ban on new oil and gas leases in the in Alaska, but lo and behold, it has been blocked by a federal judge. That's where we are right now. So it was blocked by Judge Terry Doughty, in Louisiana. A long-term halt to oil and gas sales would curb future production and could hurt states like Louisiana that are heavily dependent on the industry and that has contributed to global warming. So restructure the industries to be green and renewable? I don't get it. You're putting all your chips in a dying industry. You do know that, right? You're putting all your chips in a dying industry. Biden gets blocked, so the results are... I mean, that is also true. That's a problem, too. That is a problem. You're putting all your chips on an industry that's dying. You're putting all your chips on an industry that's dying. Not sustainable. I don't know. The lawsuit notes that coastal states receiving significant revenue from onshore and offshore oil and gas activity. Stopping the leases, the lawsuit argues, would diminish revenue that pays for Louisiana efforts to restore coastal wetlands, raise energy costs, and lead to major job losses in oil-producing states. You could make these jobs building the future, okay? And I don't think that the revenue that pays for, you know, ecosystem restoration should be dependent on that. That seems kind of strange. Yeah, wrapping your chips all in the same newspaper. Hey, Justin, how's it going? Yeah, fundraise, exactly. Like, why are you, like, tying that together? That makes absolutely no sense. It's like hamstringing yourself. Which group do you hate the most? It's a weird question. It's a very weird question. I don't even know what that means. Yeah, so this is the update of what's going on here. Alright, folks, in case you had any doubts about why the vaccine and being precautious is important, if there's any stress or any I guess any evidence to stress vaccination and wearing masks and social distance, like, and just trying to do what you need to do and listen to CDC guidelines, well, Many post-COVID patients are experiencing new medical problems. An analysis of health insurance records of almost 2 million coronavirus patients found issues in nearly a quarter, including those whose COVID infection was even mild or asymptomatic. Yeah, remember all those crying things about like, asymptomatic people, blah, 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 blah. Like, it doesn't even matter. Like, okay. Hundreds of thousands of Americans. It matters not if you get it and don't die, but also can't walk up the stairs without getting winded and you're 26. True. Hundreds of thousands of Americans have sought medical care for post-COVID health problems they had not been diagnosed with before becoming infected with the coronavirus, according to the largest study to date of long-term symptoms in COVID patients. The study, tracking the health insurance records for nearly 2 million people in the US who contracted the coronavirus last year, found that 1 month or more after their infection, almost one quarter, 23%, that's a pretty good number. That's what, 200 and something thousand people out of 2 million? Out of 2 million? Of them sought medical treatment for new conditions. Those affected were all ages, including children. Remember we had this like nonsense about like, oh, well, the children aren't affected. Yes, 500. Sorry, I'm thinking like I halved it in my head. Sorry, I can't do math at 10:43 in the morning. But yes, you're right. So remember, oh, COVID doesn't affect the children. Oh, COVID, if you're asymptomatic, you're fine. Yeah, okie dokie. Their most common new health problems were pain, including nerves and muscles, breathing difficulties, of course, high cholesterol, malaise, and fatigue. Of course, we knew that from preliminary studies. We knew that difficulty breathing, fatigue was a thing, chest pains, and high blood pressure. Other issues included intestinal symptoms, migraine, skin problems, heart abnormalities was another study that was preliminary that we kind of like were starting to observe. Sleep disorders, mental health conditions like anxiety and depression. Post-COVID health problems were more common even among people who had not gotten sick from the virus at all, the study found. While nearly half of the patients who were hospitalized for COVID experienced subsequent medical issues, so did 27% of the people who had mild or moderate symptoms, and 19% of people who said they were asymptomatic. Have a good day, everyone. You have a good day. Thank you. I think most Americans already had those problems. No. Like, I don't... Were you listening? This was after they contracted the virus. I've noticed a difference in my ability to breathe that hasn't gone away since. Yep. Yikes, spread it forward. Yikes. I mean, you could stand by your opinion. It would be wrong, but you can stand by it, I guess. Hey, Sparrowhawk, how's it going? One thing that was surprising to us was... Is it dangerous? Yeah, no kidding. Not bad, it's hot? I bet. One thing that was surprising to us was a large percent of asymptomatic patients that are in the category of long COVID, said Robin Gelberd, president of Fair Health, a nonprofit organization that conducted a study on, based on what it says, the nation's largest database of private health insurance claims. More than 1,959,982 patients whose record were evaluated reported no symptoms from their COVID infection. 40% had symptoms but didn't require hospitalization, including 1% of whose only symptom was lost taste of smell. Only 5% were hospitalized. Mr. Gelberd said the fact that asymptomatic people can have post-COVID symptoms is important to emphasize so that patients and doctors can know to consider the possibility that some health issues may actually be after effects of the coronavirus. There are some people who may not have even known they had COVID, but if they continue to present with some of these conditions that are unusual for their health history, may be worth some further investigation by medical professionals. Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, exactly. My dad was asymptomatic when he had it, and this encompasses my mom, dad, and sister. Yeah, I mean, you know, this is what infuriates me about people who, like, continue to perpetuate the idea, that this is just, like, not a big deal. Gotta go. Good luck and have a wonderful day. You have a wonderful day. Thank you for hanging out with us. I think the virus is here in 2017. That is actually factually incorrect. As far as I can tell, unless you have any other corroborating evidence, you're just making stuff up, and I really can't have that. I really can't have that. The report, which will be posted publicly on Tuesday on the organization's website, analyzed records of people diagnosed with COVID between February and December, tracking them until February of 2021. It found that 454,477 were consulted health providers for symptoms 30 days or more after their infection. Fair Health said the analysis was evaluated by the independent academic reviewer, but not formally peer-reviewed. Those symptoms, okay, but symptoms. No, you're not understanding. So this study, this initial study, is conducted based on a person being diagnosed with COVID and then these symptoms manifesting themselves afterwards. In other words, they didn't have this beforehand. Do you understand that? Or like, is there like something that's being disconnected here? I mean, it's in his name, Wing. What are you talking about? Chinese collusion? Collusion? What? Hey, can we come back down to Earth, chat? Can we come back down to Earth? What is going on here? Can we come back down to Earth? Holy yikes. Sounds like new Cold War nonsense, yeah. Yeah, hundreds of thousands didn't die in 2017 due to flu-like symptoms. Yeah, this is ridiculous. I think he's saying China met with the virus and conspired to hurt Americans, but instead of Chinese. Hey, Jesse, how's it going? Anyways, can we come back down to Earth? Okay, let's focus on reality. Let's focus on the facts. Jesus Christ. Or else I'm gonna start timing people out. That's it. I'm feeling it's idiocracy. No, stop it. That's not. No, just no. No. Wait, they told Trump in 2019 there was no mass deaths at the time. Are you okay? Last chance. Listen. The coronavirus happened in 2019, okay? Late 2019, anywhere from November, December, January of 2020, okay? We got a grasp of it here about early 2020. No, Great Equalizer, that's not what we're about here, okay? That's not what we're about here, so I'm gonna ask you to not do that, please. So, yeah, you're just completely off in, I don't know, in another alternate universe. Gaslit _heroes. That's right, no fun here. That's right. The strength of his study is really its size and its ability to look across the range of disease severity in a diverse age group, said Dr. Helen Chu, Associated Professor of Medicine and Infectious Diseases at University of Washington School of... University of Washington School of Medicine was not involved in the report. This is a hard study to do with so much data. The report drives home the point that COVID can affect nearly every organ system. So, yeah, just understand. We're all very serious boys and girls here. Trues. We're all very serious boys, girls, and enemies. That's right. All of these manifestations are chronic conditions that will last a lifetime and will forever scar some individuals and families. Okay, so this is to drive home the point that just because you're asymptomatic or just because you had a small bout with COVID doesn't mean that there's some large, that there isn't some large permanent after effect. Okay, so get the vaccine, follow CDC guidelines, ask your doctor. Okay, it's simple as that. Ask your doctor, follow CDC guidelines, or the most updated CDC guidelines, and yeah. Any doubts? Ask your doctor. Any doubts? Just ask your doctor. Okay? Somebody posted this one on the Discord, so I'm gonna go over this one. That's very sad. Hungary approves law banning LGBTQ content for minors. Hungary has passed a new law critics say conflates pedophilia with LGBT. This is a constant trope. This is a constant trope. Is the government trying to deflect attention from its failures and divide the opposition? Yeah, Viktor Orban is no friend to democracy. Hungarian Prime Minister. Wait, what language is this? Wait. Okay, Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban is not a diehard homophobe. Nevertheless, he makes overtly homophobic remarks now and then, and for some reason for political expediency. So he's... What? Is he or is he not? This is confusing. In an interview last fall, Orban drew a parallel between homosexuality and pedophilia, a very, very common trope. Hungary is a tolerant, patient country with regard to homosexuality, but there's a real red line that must not be crossed. Leave our children alone. Wait. If you're a public figure sprouting homophobia, I couldn't care less if you're actually home. Yeah, it's really irrelevant, Sparrowhawk. If you ask some of these Facebook doctors, vaccine causes autism. That's true. I've seen that. Actually, you know what?
Or Camry.
Here. There you go. Who named it though? What? Are you okay? The red line is the basis of a new law proposed by Orban's governing majority and passed by the Hungarian parliament on Tuesday. The bill led to an outcry in Hungary in recent days, with civil organizations including Amnesty International protesting against the majority's move, and a petition signed by more than 100,000 people opposing the legislation. On Monday, about 10,000 people demonstrated on Budapest's Kossuth Square in front of Parliament. Yeah, this is not good. The draft legislation presented in May only stipulated tougher penalties for pedophilia in the wake of several cases of child abuse among Fidesz supporters, which are unsuccessfully covered up. Okay, but that's different. Like that's a whole that's completely different. Setting aside the meme, it's pretty easy to correlate autism with literally anything because it's exploding. Yeah. Correlation, causation kind of meme. Non-cognitive? Alright, chat, come on. The former Hungarian ambassador to Peru, Gabriel Caleta, was sentenced to suspended prison for child pornography charges. Okay, but that has absolutely nothing to do with the LGBTQ community. Like, that doesn't... universal poles. But yeah, like relating to like this is a tale as old as time. Relating like, you know, the LGBTQ community with like pedophilia has always been like a constant trope for against them. Wait, how does this party have no problems? Have problems with their stance on child abuse? Yeah, I don't know. According to the vague wording, promoting homosexuality and gender change surgery to minors will be forbidden. And only organizations handpicked by... Wait, so they are allowing it, but just handpicked? I don't get this. The law does not provide precise definitions, so even a display of a rainbow flag in public could be punishable. What? Yikes. Right, exactly, Sparrowhawk. The law is modeled on similar legislation in Russia and Poland. Russia passed a law against what it's called gay propaganda. Yikes. Yeah, keeping it vague and confusing is a good way to provide a lot of legal cover for questionable censorship. No definitions, no accountability. True. So TLDR, this is very scary. Going on in Hungary. Let me post that in chat. As a result, last year the officials' change of birth sex was banned by law and the constitution is amended to add the mother is a woman, the father is a man. As a result, same-sex couples no longer have adoption rights in Hungary. But yeah, what? Yeah. Orban is using this new law to distract from various recent problems. You can't mobilize masses of fear with migration anymore because hardly any refugees come to Hungary. That is why Orban now resorts to identity issues like radical homophobia, which deliberately blurs the lines between public and private issues and sets an agenda of social polarization. True, that's the TLDR of that. Yeah, I mean, Viktor Orban is pretty authoritarian. That's interesting. Their LGBTQ is LM. Is Hungary like a southern US state now? Yeah. Alright, this is also important to bring up. Polar Stern team warns Arctic may be past tipping point. A research team that set sail for the Arctic has warned that the tipping point for an irreversible global warming has already been triggered. The scientists who led the international Mosaic expedition to the North Pole on Tuesday warned that the point could have already been reached at which irreversible global warming is triggered. During its expedition, the German research vessel Polar Stern drifted through the Arctic on an ice floe for a year to be able to research the winter at the North Pole and the effects of climate change. The disappearance of summer sea ice in the Arctic is one of the first landmines in this minefield, one of the tipping points that we set off first when we push warming too far, said team leader Marcus Rex, adding, one can essentially ask if we haven't already stepped on this mine and already set off the beginning of an explosion. Rex led what was the world's biggest mission so far to the North Pole, an expedition that involved some 300 scientists from 20 countries. Its Polar Stern vessel returned to Germany in October, bringing evidence of an Arctic Ocean that could see ice-free summers within decades. Can you imagine, like, once that happens and becomes a reality? If we reach the point where we're past the tipping point, the next thing we have to worry about is the social situation where the people are ready to deal with humanitarian crises, and no, not good. Just look how we handled the COVID. No, I can't. It's honestly stunning how fast things are changing. It's not that, like, things are quickly changing. It's that we are coming to the reality. The more studies we do, the more we realize how apt we are. To be honest, it's not like this is just happening on the dime. It's just that now they're actually, like, realizing and grabbing the data behind it, right? Yeah, it's increasing exponentially. Each time it seems to me like we're screwed harder and harder. Pathetically pleading people not to come here. Yeah, I mean, like, we clearly we're not ready. What if the wealthy just try to keep us fighting over the same issues eternally so we can never get past them to start thinking about how billionaires are the real problem? I mean, that's kind of an issue. That kind of happens. That's true. But all their billions is going to be worth nothing. The Siberian methane gases are releasing constantly. We are still driving it too. Yeah, I mean, I don't see us. It's not about reversing at this point. I don't even know if we can reach that point. I think that I think the realistic expectation is mitigation. I think the expectation at this point is mitigation, right? The realistic expectation is mitigate as much as possible, right? Because, like, if we act as quickly as possible in the most aggressive manner to try to turn this around, right? We do an aggressive program to get off fossil fuels. We do an aggressive program to get off plastics and kind of reorganize our economic handling of things. We invest a ton of resources into restoration and international programs. Then maybe we can mitigate the problematic, the real bad parts of it, right? Their dollars might not be worth much, but if we end up with weird things like, I don't know, corporate living spaces or even communities sprouting up before or alongside crime crisis, we could see ourselves living in Amazon neighborhoods. Yeah, maybe, but I don't know. It's all irrelevant if it becomes, you know, just taking the worst case scenario. I mean, like, people are already to a degree experiencing loss of ability of how to get food, loss of ability to get water. I mean, I'm super concerned about the rising temperature and floods are going to decimate the agriculture. We need mitigation for actual impacts too. Yeah, Mank the Dank. When we realize, oh, Texas is already there, Jesse. I hate to break it to you. When we realize that, like, a lot of these, like, places that we rely on to grow food aren't viable anymore, we'd enter a new phase, right? Imagine realizing that we can't actually grow food in the same areas the same way, and we have less and less land to be able to grow food, and we start beginning to realize, like, wait, our water shortages are already, as it is, bad. What happens when, like, more and more people start running out of ways to get water? It's going to set off a chain reaction where people are going to have to move. What happens when East Coast cities are starting to get, like, decimated? You know, one good hurricane, and that's it. This is why I think Turn News is doing something really smart and learning to grow his own food. Yeah, and traveling to different farms and harboring knowledge. Yeah, that's incredibly important, and I respect them for that. If you guys have never seen Turing News, I highly recommend you check them out. They are not only a fantastic human being, and I really respect Turing News's content, and I respect his knowledge. And I think he deserves more people viewing, so go check them out. He seems like a real one. Yeah, Turing News is good. I really respect them. We need an all-hands deck approach, and we're just not doing it. Yeah, that's the problem, spread it forward. That's one of the many myriad of issues, right? Presenting the information 8 months on, Rex noted the ice had retreated faster in the spring of 2020 than it had since the beginning of records, and that spread of sea ice in the summer was only half as large as decades ago. The only evaluation in the next years will allow us to determine if we can still save the year-round Arctic sea ice through forceful climate protection, or whether we have already passed this important tipping point. Yeah. This also presents different domino effects. I mean, like, we know that how sea levels and how, like, the ice melting will have a domino effect of how the currents work, of how the ocean currents work, and if those get messed up, stopped, or rerouted, or changed in any way, shape, or form, that produces another bunch of domino effects in terms of, like, how our weather works, how species in the ocean survive or not. I mean, it's incredibly complicated, and it's very worrying. The team collected huge amounts of data aimed at building a better knowledge of the climate-relevant environmental process at the North Pole. The 140 million pounds, or euros, $165 million expedition returned with an estimated 150 terabytes of data and more than 1,000 ice samples. Yeah. TLDR, once again, we're beginning to realize just how bad it is. The currents do a lot to keep the planet cool. Yeah, and they are also drivers of how our weather patterns work. Again, if we can't grow food the way we're used to, and things start, like, massively changing, where all of a sudden the lands that were available to us are no longer able to produce food, I mean, yikes.
We're gynecologists.
Picture of the Arctic and the world's climate system. Snow and ice cover some parts of the North Pole all year round. The Polar Stern research ship and its team of scientists spent a year frozen here, drifting with the ice flow. The early findings from their research show that the Arctic ice is thinning, and that in spring 2020, the sea ice retreated faster than ever before. In autumn, the ice refroze later than usual. The fear is that the summer sea ice in the Arctic could soon disappear completely. Scientists say this is a warning the world can't ignore.
That shows how dramatic the changes in the Arctic are, and that we are about to completely lose the summer Arctic sea ice. And that is one of the important tipping points in Earth's climate system.
Yeah, no kidding.
The team compared their findings with 130 years worth of records about the ice. The scientists say the Earth is close to the point of irreversible climate change. But there is still time.
We need to act quickly now. We need to reduce our emissions of greenhouse gases drastically, and we need to do that during the next decade. By the mid of the century, at the latest, we need to be climate neutral.
And that's very generous. That is very, very, very generous. Yeah, so we need to. What he's saying is, if we don't act by the end of this decade, the probability of us falling into the more catastrophic end of the possibilities become more and more and more likely. And yeah, well, we've already went over what could possibly happen if we continue down this path. It's time to get our city to use revenue for bonds and aquaponics and co-ops. I mean, yes, but that alone isn't really enough, right? It needs to, and what we need to do is have massive overhauls, like an aggressive program, massive aggressive programs to get us out of use of fossil fuels, right, as quickly as possible in as many ways as possible, right? And that's going to take an aggressive program, a governmental program that's supposedly, something to akin to like an aspect of the Green New Deal was supposed to be a overhaul of our infrastructure system to get us off fossil fuels. That in itself would be a nice chunk. But yeah, we'll see. I mean, the reality is the political will is lacking. There's no, because like, there is no way, there is no getting out of this without having a political will to address this issue. There's just no way around it. The world is too stupid to get out of global warming. I think that what you mean is we are not grasping the concept, right? Because I think like human beings, like I really wouldn't like paint a broad stripe like that. I would say that human beings aren't capable of, I think they're not grasping or have a hard time grasping the picture, the big picture, right? The same problem like with COVID, right? You had people literally saying, well, it's not affecting me, right? Why should I care about it? And they don't understand that their actions have consequences for other people. And those consequences ripple and even sometimes come back around to them. So, yeah, there you go, Sparrowhawk. I think that the better word would be ignorance. And just as a general, like, humans have a hard time, like, absorbing or, like, understanding a broader picture, right? That's not global warming. What is that? It's not even a problem. Like, what are you talking about? We have great weather here. Like, they don't understand. Anyism is people. It doesn't operate in a vacuum. They were self-switch and heartless in a society that raised them to be. Yeah, that's the very fair point, Sparrowhawk. The reality is, we need to get people on board to understand the severity of this issue, to then provide pressure for action, right? For them to provide pressure to do action, right? We need to get people to understand the severity of the problem and how the scope of this issue affects them or their children, and build the pressure necessary to enact change. I mean, otherwise, like, we're never gonna get anywhere. Aeronaut coming in hot with the tier 1 subscription, 7 months. Howdy, howdy. Aeronaut. Did I do it right? Hey. Yes. There we go. 99% of people aren't capitalists. They have just been victims of manufactured consent by the people who wield power. Please focus on your energy on more productive direction. Yeah, like, I don't know if, like, we can just broadly say that religion is the culprit, although I understand that it could be an aspect. Hope you're all well. Thank you so much. I appreciate that, Aeronaut. Hope you're doing all right, and thank you for joining us. Please go follow twitch.tv/Aeronaut. You're not wrong, but it seems like you're looking for a magic bullet or single answer. Yeah, like, I understand the frustration, and, like, I understand how, like, religious indoctrination is a problem, and I agree with you. But I think that, like, in the terms of climate change, I think that what we need to do is we need to build political pressure, and that only happens if people understand where we're coming from, and that only happens if people, like, if we can get as many people on board with the realities and science behind it in a way that they can understand, right? in a way that they can understand, because like we don't exactly have that much time to turn the ship around and to mitigate the worst ends of it, right? So it would be it's up to us to do what we can in the time that we have with the tools that we have, right? Please pay attention to your local politicians. What are they up to? Who's your city council? Your state and local representatives. I mean, like, look, just how like important it is to pay attention to these things. The problems that are happening in, like, for example, Texas, right? They are ripple effects of people not understanding the ramifications of their choices, because it's tough to see the broader picture of things, right? Mitch McConnell won't let the US fight climate change. I mean, Mitch McConnell's not going to do anything. I don't trust Mitch McConnell. It's not on TV. Local journalism is struggling a lot. Yeah, that's kind of a problem, right? In order for a democracy to be relevant or healthy, you kind of need transparency. I talked about this earlier. You kind of need transparency. Most people actually understand it's our power structure, as Barrow explained. I mean, yeah, people need to be aware of the problem, but attacking their intelligence will not help them. Yes. I mean, just look at what happened in Texas. Like, decisions have ripple effects and have ramifications that don't just affect you, right? Once we get people to understand that, we can say, okay, look at the ramifications and decisions. Where are they leading us to? Look at the big picture. We have to, like, get people to understand the big picture, right? Else, this is all for naught, right? And we need to get people on board with that, because that's how you build political pressure, right? For the alleged representatives to do anything. When fish swim in water, they cannot see the water. Well, I mean, like, I can. I'm trying to inform people about it, and I'm trying to be like, hey, this is kind of a problem. There are huge ramifications here, and failure to understand is going to lead to catastrophe, and we have the potential to fix it. It's just a matter of whether or not we want to. Whether or not we can build political pressure for our and I'll use this word sparingly, leaders to do something about it, right? I have changed and thrown out so much wrong think that I'm amazed at how everyone and everything was nothing but a scam. Well, no matter how many military vets try to make me feel like it is. Well, I think that, like, there are Lee Spanner here is a vet, is he not? Are they not? There you go. He was in Nam. Yeah, well, I would feel that way if I was lied to too. Four years on an aircraft carrier. So the TLDR is, number one, climate change is a severe problem. It's a severe crisis that we need to address. Number 2, it has to be addressed here at home, right? It has to be addressed here at home so that we can provide the leg to stand on when we head to the international stage and say we need to cooperate and get this done. Number 3, it's going to require a lot of political will to move in the direction away from fossil fuels as quickly as possible in every single way possible. 3, it's going to require massive investments in trying to attempt to restore destroyed ecosystems. 4, it's going to require us diverting resources to as many countries as possible to expand and eliminate as much of greenhouse emissions as possible worldwide. And number 5, we need to understand that our current economic system is not sustainable. We need to understand that our planned obsolescence, our essentially scam economic system of one-time use products over consumption, planned obsolescence, this is not sustainable. Totally irrelevant, but F Jimmy Dore. We must move towards socialism. I think that we can I think that we can take, or we will only have the wealthy and the extreme poor. Well, I mean, like, if we head down the more catastrophic models of climate change, I think all of that will be irrelevant. I think it'll all be irrelevant. To be quite honest, to be quite frank with you, if we move into the more catastrophic models of climate change, I think the wealthy, poor, irrelevant. None of that will matter at that point. I'm trying to avoid that. That's right. If it becomes if we hit the catastrophic levels, yeah, it pretty much does, right? It pretty much does. So that's kind of my point. So we should probably work together to fix this. There should be a movement for us to understand the severity of the situation and get local, state, and federal politicians to make moves as aggressively as possible, and then build an international coalition to make moves as aggressively as possible. I mean, I think that's pretty much one of the only plays we have left, save just letting it all go down the drain. I don't know, Mank the Tank. Maybe. I don't even know if it would be just 10,000, but I think that it will, like, what I mean by catastrophic, I mean, like, there is going to be millions of people who are lost their homes. There's going to be millions of people displaced. There's going to be a lot of people who won't have access to food, water, all these things. There's going to be pathways for conflict. There's going to be pathways for conflict over these resources. I mean, the possibilities for this going bad are 101 ways. Is it raw materials you have available? Yep. I'm so not going to make it today without a nap. We'll take a nap. Look at the Republican Party. All they can do is think about Trump. Yeah, that's true. And he's an idiot. Yeah, I don't deny that. Alright folks, it is getting close to 11:30. I do have to start heading out. I appreciate all of you guys hanging with me today. Thank you so much for all your support. Aeronok, thank you for the subscription. Top Ruby, thank you for the follow. Nanashi_UK, thank you for the follow. And again, thank you Anarchist Gothis for the offline follow. I appreciate it. Thank you guys. Mark the Dank for the follow. I appreciate it. If you guys enjoyed the content, make sure you do the YouTubes. You like, comment, do the thing. head on over to our Discord, all that awesome stuff. Wait, thanks for the show. Thank you for hanging out. I appreciate that. Thank you guys. I appreciate all of you guys hanging out here. We do news and politics Monday through Thursday, 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. We also have Saturday Catterdays where we have a more chill version of the show with the co-host. So come check that out. Guaranteed kitty cat on stream. Promise. That's a promise. Thank you guys for hanging out. Please stay safe. Please take care of each other. I love you all, and I hope to see you guys in the next stream. See ya! Alright folks, I know it was a little bit doomer, but that's just how it is sometimes. Let's see if we can, you know what? Touring News is on. How about we go hang out with Touring News for a bit? Thank you, Big Dangly Thangs. I appreciate you. Take care, folks. You take care. You know what? Let's go hang out with Touring, alright? Let's go hang out with Touring. Let's see what he's up to. Alright, folks. We're heading out in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Here we go.